This is Think Energy, the podcast that helps you better understand the fast-changing world of energy through conversations with game changers, industry leaders, and influencers. So join me, Dan Sege, and my co-host Rebecca Schwartz as we explore both traditional and unconventional facets of the energy industry. Hey everyone, welcome back.
To refresh our listeners, or in case they missed it in December, our organization Hydro Ottawa announced that it will make its entire operations net zero by the time 2030 rolls around. And by my calculations, that's only 8 years away. In order to achieve net zero, you have to remove as much greenhouse gas emissions or more than you're currently putting into the atmosphere.
Now, to put it into further perspective, Ottawa's electricity grid stretches 1,100 square kilometers. It's essentially Ottawa's largest machine. Add to that our fleet of bucket trucks and other vehicles, various work centers across the city, and more than 700 employees. You start to realize that this is no small endeavor.
Our president and CEO likes to call it our moonshot, after the Apollo 11 mission, where we sent a man to the moon in the 1960s.
Actually, the timeline to achieve both is pretty similar. President Kennedy announced his ambitious goal to Congress in 1961. By 1969, a man was on the surface of the moon. In those short 8 years, it must have seemed impossible to many.
Well, Canada is putting as much pollution into the atmosphere, unfortunately, as it did a generation ago, 730 million tons to be exact. Canada's electricity industry is one of the cleanest in the world. In fact, 80% of the electricity in Canada comes from not emitting resources.
And Ontario's electricity sector is even more impressive, with 94% of its electricity we produce completely free of greenhouse gas emissions. Some experts say that a fully decarbonized electricity industry will be the key climate change solution for Canada.
Here's today's big question. What will it take to get Hydro Ottawa to net zero by 2030? And what inspired the decision to be the first municipally owned utility in Canada to do it? We've been building an impressive resume here at Hydro Ottawa when it comes to environmental sustainability. Most recently, we even won the Canadian Electricity Association's Sustainability Electricity Company designation in 2021. But we'll get into all of that with our special guest later today.
Bryce Conrad has been the president and CEO of Hydro Ottawa since 2011. Under his leadership, Hydro Ottawa has become one of the most innovative utilities in Canada, regularly winning awards and accolades for its customer-oriented services and its commitment to environmental sustainability. It is the largest municipally owned producer of clean, renewable energy in Ontario. He's also my boss. Bryce, welcome to the show. Now, Hydro Ottawa recently made a net zero by 2030 commitment, and there's a lot of momentum in that direction in corporate Canada generally. What's your view on its importance? What makes for a truly credible and meaningful net zero commitment?
Collectively, we as a society have been talking about this for, quite frankly, too long. I mean, when I did this presentation to the board, you reference back to Kyoto and the Kyoto protocols, and then Paris, Montreal. I mean, every 4 or 5 years they get around to having another meeting and collectively agree to do something, but never do anything. So there's a whole lot of talk and nothing else much. So, from our perspective as a company, it was just time. It's time to start taking responsibility for our own house and, the impact that we have collectively on our own environment. That we can and will do better, that we can be part of the solution. I'd say this, as someone who spent time in the federal government, who's worked, 15 years working in federal provincial relations. I mean, the answer to climate change is not going to come from some magical central government telling us what to do or what not to do. It's not going to come from a provincial government. The solutions are going to be local. They're going to come from the ground up, and they're going to be you and me doing the right thing each and every day, changing our own behavior, recognizing that the behavior that the path that we're on today is unsustainable, and being willing to make those changes. And I love the idea that there's still some expectation that there is going to be some sort of savior that's going to come in and fix everything for us. And if you look at Jeff Bezos, you look at Elon Musk. I mean, the two wealthiest men in the world, and they're trying to get off the planet faster than they can stay on the planet. So, by building rocket ships and stuff. So the answer is not there. What I do like about this time, what I do think is different this time, is for the first time, at least for my perception, the first time is that it's not simply going to be governments making commitments. You're actually starting to see the private sector come to the table with money and solutions. And when you see people like Larry Fink, and you see OMERS and the big pension funds and the big banks, the big insurance companies, when you start seeing these massive multi-billion-dollar businesses stepping up to the table and saying, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to start to change behavior, that's kind of special. That's the secret sauce that's necessary to solve this problem. And the perfect example, and I've used this before and I'll use it again, is the largest public sector pension fund in the world is a Norwegian pension fund, which effectively is Canada Pension Fund for Norwegians. And they have about $1.8 trillion under management. And the source of that fund, the genesis of that fund was essentially selling the offshore oil rights for Norwegian oil development in the North Sea. And now they are saying, we no longer will invest in companies that produce fossil fuel. So isn't that ironic that a pension fund, the largest in the world, that began via fossil fuel money, is now turning their attention to green technologies? That's new. That's different. That's something we haven't seen before.
Okay, here's a follow-up question. Could you maybe expand on what you mean when you say net zero is our moonshot? What is behind the comparison of the Apollo 11 mission that inspired you?
So YouTube, you can go back and dial up all these old speeches and watch them anew. But look, if you go back to JFK in 1961, so he does this speech before the joint House and Senate, and it's not a long speech, so I'd encourage everyone to go watch it. It's about a minute long, the clip that's relevant anyway. And in that speech, he says, we are going to go to the moon before the end of the decade. So he's doing this in 61. Obviously, they went to the moon in 69. But as part of that, he does something that people don't do enough of these days, right? He literally says, we're going to go to the moon, so that's our objective. And I have no idea how we're going to get there. I'm paraphrasing him, obviously. I have no idea how we're going to get there. The technology doesn't exist the fuel doesn't exist. The booster rocket technology doesn't exist. And the capsule necessary to get someone to and from the moon doesn't exist today. So he's making this bold announcement without and then acknowledging that he doesn't know how they're going to do it. And I thought, that's just so, quite frankly, refreshing in this day and age where everything is kind of prepackaged, right? Like, we know what we're going to do this next, 2 years, but we already know that we've got it in the bag, and here's how it's going to be done. I like the idea of setting the big, hairy, audacious goal for the company and saying, and I've said this to the management team, I have no clue how we're going to get there. I don't know. Like I know what we need to start doing, but I don't know what the answer is. But I work with some of the smartest people in the game, and I know that if they're empowered to do this, and we put our minds to this, we will do this. And that's what Kennedy counted on in '61, and that's lo and behold what happened. So when I liken it to the moonshot, it's just that it's the big, hairy, audacious goal without any real clear roadmap as to how to accomplish that goal. And I think, quite frankly, that's what served us best, is when we don't necessarily have the answers, and we have to figure our way through this sort of stuff. And I see that every day at the company, right? If you look back at how we handled the tornadoes, if you look back at the way we handle the floods, if you look at the way we handle our system, there's a lot of prescriptive stuff. Yes, there's a lot of this is how we do things, but there are a lot of days where you throw out the rule book, you throw out the manual, and you have to figure your way forward. And that's when this company's at its best. So that's the moonshot.
Now, how concerned are you about climate change and environmental damage? What does the energy transition mean for Hydro Ottawa as it exists today, and for you personally as we look to the future?
So let's just state categorically that climate change is real. As I sit here today, it's like minus 27,000 degrees outside. And people go, "Oh, if it's global warming, why is it so damn cold?" And of course, you just want to smack people that say things like that. But look, the God's honest truth is climate change is not about the day-to-day weather. It's about weather patterns. It's about how, in the past, we've had windstorms and ice storms. We've had 8 tornadoes, including one in downtown Nepean. We've had a 1 in 100 year flood followed by a 1 in 1,000 year flood. We've had heat waves that have stretched and taxed our system. And all of this is just, quite frankly, within the past 5 years. So that's what climate change means. It means unpredictable, dramatically changing weather patterns. And if you run a utility like I do or like we do, you don't like that. Our infrastructure is built to withstand X. It's not built to withstand X plus 30% or X plus 50%. So, when a windstorm comes through, the infrastructure is ready to sustain winds up to 90 miles an hour or something like that. Well, we all saw what happened when the tornadoes came through. 130 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour, right? Those poles snapped like twigs. That's what climate change means. So, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And, it's something that we have to start to build into our plans as to how we build better in the future. So are we building our infrastructure to withstand 90 mile an hour winds, or are we building them to withstand 150 mile an hour winds? Well, there's a cost difference to that, obviously. But the answer is, we've got to do a better job of building stronger, more resilient infrastructure. If you're building, if you saw during the floods, the Chaudière facility, which is our new generating asset down at Chaudière Falls, you were seeing for the first time in history all 50 of the gates at the ring dam were open. And there was more. I think it was 2 Olympic swimming pools were passing through the gates every second. The waterfall, the speed in the waterfall was faster than the Niagara Falls. These are things that shouldn't be happening in downtown Ottawa, but have happened, 3 times since I've been here, and that's 10 years. So if anyone wants to have a debate about whether or not climate change is real, call me up. Let's have that conversation, because it's very real, and it's going to dramatically impact our future. In terms of the energy transition, I think I talked a bit about it, but when we model out and look at what our future looks like 50 years from now, our infrastructure looks fundamentally different than it does today. It's in fundamentally different places than it is today. We're going to rely upon artificial intelligence, machine learning. Each and every one of those, everything will be censored up. So, the idea is that as opposed to us rolling a truck to fix something that's broken or down, we can sort of simply reroute it from the control center. So that, yes, we still have to get out there and fix what's broken, but for you, the customer of Hydro Ottawa, you actually won't notice the impact because the power will have switched over to another source instantaneously. That's the goal. I think, you'll see more and more people, and I've been telling people this for 10 years, right? The day and the age of, my grandmother, who used to sort of wait patiently in the mailbox for the bill to come in so she could open it up that day, write a check, and put it back in the mailbox the next day. Those days are gone, and those people are gone. The people that our customers today, they want to interact. They want more. They want to understand how they can manage their utility. They want to understand how they can manage their energy consumption, particularly if you start to put the onus on them with respect to climate change and what they're doing. So they're going to want to know, do I plug my electric car in? If I plug it in now, do I wait and charge it between 2 and 4 a.m. or do I charge it now? Can I charge my house with my car? They're going to be part of this. They're going to be part of this solution, but they're also going to have expectations of us as a provider to be transparent, authentic, reliable, cost. Managing the costs. So that energy transition is going to be huge for us, and it's only going to get more complicated. And I haven't even talked about the downside, right? I mean, the more you open the kimono and you allow the customers to sort of engage with you directly, the more opportunity you're giving for nefarious actors to sort of engage in things that we don't want to be happening. I think like cybersecurity is an example.
Okay, let's talk energy now. Bryce, we've got an interesting energy ecosystem here in Ottawa with long-standing localized and green generation. We had distributed energy resources before it was a thing. Is there a model here that can be applied more broadly?
Yeah, you know what? So I always like to think that Hydro Ottawa is at the cutting edge of these sorts of things. So, we were doing distributed energy resources before they even had a term for it. So I tell my kids we were cool before you knew what cool was. So short answer is yeah. We've got massive generating assets in our backyard, which, theoretically can be used as distributed energy resources. As we go forward, my expectation is that, and I'd be the first to admit, having Chaudière and the big generating assets is a massive advantage for the company. But where we haven't done so well with our customers is with respect to some of the other DER activity, like the local homeowner that wants to put up solar panels and stuff like that. And the God's honest truth is those little installations are a real pain. They're a pain to manage. They're all kind of one-offs. Every one of them is individualized. Every one of them requires a lot of time and attention. But that's not the right answer. The right answer is we should be treating these things as gifts. We should be doing everything in our power to support them and roll them out even further. So my expectation is over the course of the next 5-10 years, you're going to see us serve as a catalyst role for further DERs in the community. So that's one. That's the first one I would say is if you're waiting to install solar panels or you need to or you want to, give us a call. We're here to help you and support it. But one of the projects that I think stands out is kind of unique, certainly in Canada, and one that we're particularly proud of, just given the role we played, is down at the Zibi community, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's directly between Gatineau and Ottawa. It's on an island, no man's land between the two provinces. So half of it's in Quebec, the other half is in Ontario. And, the developer down there, kudos to them, they have partners in Dream Properties, came to us, I guess, 6 years ago, with the idea of using this development, which is 34 acres on the waterfront, and turning it into a one planet, one world kind of community where, it's zero carbon. They could have just asked us to run pipe or run power lines, but we thought, here's an opportunity for us to get in on the ground and see how this actually works. So, it's up, it's running. Condos are being built. People are living there today. There's, the heat and cooling. The heat's coming from, effluent discharge out of the Kruger paper plant over on the Gatineau side. So this is a waste product that's being pumped back into the pipes to sort of heat the homes. Conversely, in the summer, they're using the Ottawa River to sort of cool it. And again, it's a full scale model of what a zero carbon energy system would look like. And there's no reason you can't take that same model and apply it on a broader scale, an even broader scale, which is something that we're keen to replicate if and when we get the opportunity. But it's truly unique, and we're quite proud of it. Again, we got in on the ground floor and said, like, this is something that we're interested in. So how can we help you? And full credit to the development team. They saw the opportunity to work with us and gave us that opportunity.
Now, a lot of focus is on national targets, but here in Ottawa, we see a central role for ourselves in working with the city, customers, and other stakeholders to help drive down emissions. How much of climate action needs to be local? How important do you see Hydro Ottawa's role being to effect change?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I think if we're going to stand around waiting for the federal government or the province or some other larger national entity to sort of tell us how to solve this problem, I think we'll still be standing around waiting for it in a few years. So my perception is that all politics is local and that the solution to this problem is local. And I just gave you an example of Zibi, the community, where that is a local project that has been done. And it's been done locally, not because someone said at Government of Canada, thou shalt build a zero carbon community. They did it because it was the right thing to do, and they felt they could do it in that environment. Again, no direction from the feds or the province, and it was purely local. So the answer, as I said, is local. It's going to be local. It's going to be you and me and Rebecca and everybody else coming up and making decisions on our own that we want to leave this place in a better place than for our kids. Than what's that old expression? Board chair reminds me of on a daily basis. Leave the campsite in a better place than you found it, kind of thing, right? So that's our goal. That's my goal in coming to Hydro Ottawa, is to leave the company in a better place than I found it. That should be our collective goals. So, the city of Ottawa has declared a climate emergency. They've announced their targets. They're ramping up, a series of climate change initiatives aimed at sort of meeting those targets. Our job is to support them. They're our shareholder. So if we can, bring our money, our expertise to help support them deploying energy, carbon-free energy solutions, or just things that can help curb carbon, then that's what we'll do. I think we've got a pretty good track record. Quite frankly, the fact that we've announced that we're going to be carbon neutral by 2030 has, it's one thing to say, it's one thing to say, but we're doing it, and we're on our way. And that's garnered the attention of other organizations in town who are saying, well, if Hydro Ottawa is going to do this, then maybe they can help us do the same thing. Now, is 2030 an audacious goal for some of them? Yeah, it's probably unrealistic for some, but, the point is at least we're doing it. And, obviously it would be inconceivable for the city of Ottawa to get there by 2030, but isn't it nice to know that they can count on a partner that is going to be carbon neutral by 2030 to help them achieve their objectives going forward? So, look, we're an innovative company. We're the largest producer of green renewable energy, municipally producer of green renewable energy in Canada. We've got a first-rate utility, and we've got an energy solutions company that's there to support our customers, our businesses, and our shareholder. And we will deploy all three to that benefit. So I think my expectation is that as we go into this next election, municipal, climate change will be. Look, if it's not going to be number one or number two on the agenda, I'll be shocked. Like, I honestly think it's risen to that level of importance for the citizens of Ottawa. So yeah, taxes are always there, but I think climate change is going to be right up there with it.
So, Bryce, as you know, we're in the distinctive position at Hydro Ottawa of having cross-border assets in Ontario, Quebec, and New York. How important is it that Canada's electricity system as a whole becomes more integrated across provincial boundaries? And what key steps can we expect will be taken in that direction?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, Rebecca. And I think what people don't really appreciate is just how amazing the electricity grid actually is. It is a fully integrated machine, that works from one side of the continent to the other side to the other side. I mean, it's truly magical that you can sort of walk into your room and turn on a light. 99.999% of the time that light's going to come on, and that's a credit to the people that built the system in the first place. So the good news is that it is a fully integrated grid, Canada, US. Unfortunately, it's a little too north-south for my liking at the moment. Most of the grid runs north-south. So our power, we buy, power gets bought and transferred between Quebec and Manitoba. But, if you look at sort of those large clean energy supplies coming out of Quebec, most of them are directed south into the US for export markets. Going forward, that's obviously going to have to change. Canada is capable of being, if you look at the Ontario grid, we're 92% clean and green. But you look at something like Saskatchewan or Nova Scotia or Alberta, which are still heavily reliant on coal or natural gas or other fossil fuels. The answer has got to be, the answer is Canada. The answer is we have to share amongst our brethren, so that we have to get that clean power from Quebec and Ontario and British Columbia east-west. And I should say, Yukon and the Northwest Territories the same way. They've got access to, more difficult, but still access to sort of clean, green, renewable. The point is that that system has to sort of be brought to bear on a national level, so that, the interties between Ontario and Quebec are more plentiful. That power gets shifted into Nova Scotia, just so that our energy system can be truly clean and green. And it shouldn't take that long. Unfortunately, what's going to get in the middle of that is your classic NIMBYism, right? Where, no one wants to have these transmission lines running through their backyard kind of thing for obvious reasons. But, look, we built the railroad. This railroad built the country. St. Lawrence Seaway. We've done some incredibly impressive things from an infrastructure perspective, and I just think that's the answer going forward. We need to sort of build that infrastructure at a national level, so that, again, the power from Churchill Falls is flowing, to Regina and Edmonton and Calgary, and yeah, so that's my answer.
Okay, let's talk capacity. Getting to net zero by 2050 will mean roughly doubling clean electricity production in Canada by one estimate. That's the Clean Energy Canada. What do we need to be doing today to make that achievable?
Well, I think we have to. What's the first step in the 12-step program is admitting that you have a problem. So we have a problem. If you just step back and look at the politics, we can't build a pipeline in this country to save our lives. Now, whether you think that's the right thing or not, it's a proxy for what's necessary. So, okay, we're not going to build a pipeline, but you need to build big transmission lines, east to west or west to east or vice versa. If you're going to double the electricity, the energy, the electrical energy, which is eminently doable. We've got plenty of sources, and we've got lots of supply, and we've got more that we can tap. You just need to start to work together collectively, province to province, federal government with the provinces, to sort of make this happen. And again, I have hopes, because at the end of the day, like, we're one country. We built some amazing infrastructure. And this, St. Lawrence Seaway is a perfect example, but the rail lines. We've done this stuff before. There's no reason we can't do it again. Faced with a future where our climate is being, the costs of climate change are real, and they're only getting higher on an annual basis. It's only a matter of time before the politicians wake up and realize that this is the solution, and they have to do something, and they have to act. And it's in our best interest to do so as a nation. So I'm hopeful.
Now, Bryce, I'm curious, what are the 3 most innovative sustainability projects that you're most proud of right now that maybe people don't know Hydro Ottawa is doing or involved with?
Sure. I'd probably give you 4. And I know you asked for 3, but I'll give you 4. The first that I don't think people fully appreciate is how significant our generating assets actually are. We're not talking about small, run-of-the-mill solar facilities. We're talking about large, 150 megs of clean, green, renewable energy on both sides of the border, capable of powering, well over 100,000 homes. We've grown that production by 500% since 2012. So we are a real player in this business. And these are assets that are carbon free. So, talk about future-proofing your generating fleet, right? Like, these are the things that everybody's going to want when they realize that there is no such thing as clean coal, or when they realize that fossil fuels are not the answer going forward. So, we have these assets, and they're spectacular. And I'd encourage anybody in Ottawa, if you want to see them, see some of them in action, go check out the ones at Chaudière Falls, which are, Dan, Rebecca, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Dan sure has. Just breathtaking to watch, particularly in the summer. I wouldn't go there today when it's minus 12,000 degrees, because the wind coming off would be horrifying, but lovely in the summer. If you wait for Blues Fest, there's no better place to listen to the music than Chaudière Falls. Yeah, you get all the benefits of music. Yeah, exactly. All the benefit of Blues Fest without paying or dealing with crowds. Anyway, so that's number 1, is our generating fleet. Number 2 is I spoke about earlier, is the Zibi community utility. Again, 34 acres of prime development down there, carbon free, and we were part of that solution to make it happen. And hoping to replicate it, make it bigger, better elsewhere. But just taking something which was otherwise a science project or a concept and sort of bringing it to reality is something that we're eminently proud of. And I think Ottawans will be as well. The third, just because my kids love it, is, we've got this new substation going out, or transformer station going out in south of Ottawa in the Barhaven area, which is growing like a weed, obviously, 10 or 12% growth every year. So we had to build a new station out there, and we bought the necessary land for the station. It's called Cambrian Station. It's going online sometime between now and June, I think. In fact, it's being tested as I speak. But the point is, we bought enough land out there that we've been able to donate 15 acres for a pollinator meadow to bring back the butterflies and plant some trees. So again, no real cost to us other than the land that was used, that we bought for the transformer station itself. But here's another opportunity for us to do the right thing. And last but not least, the fourth one, which I am very proud of, is the role that we played in the conversion of the streetlights. So Ottawa had high pressure sodium streetlights like every other municipality, and over the course of 4 years, we were able to convert all 56,000 lights to LEDs. So saving the city a massive amount of money, I think somewhere in the range of $6 million a year. And those are continuing savings, right? So, that's right to the bottom line. So these are streetlights that are better. They're all IEP addressable. So, when the Sens win the Stanley Cup, we can flash red and white or whatever we want. But the point is they're just they're good for a long time, and that the energy savings will pay for them. Well, it's already paid for the project once over already, and now all the savings go right through to the taxpayer. So very proud of that.
Another thing we're doing is targeting an entirely non-emitting grid by 2035. What sort of changes will that mean for electricity utilities and customers?
Yeah, this is going back to the moonshot kind of, Rebecca, in the sense that, we're talking about it, and obviously we're committing to do these sorts of things, but we don't necessarily have a clear-cut perspective on how it's going to be done. So look, as I said earlier, in Ontario, the grid's 92% clean and green right now. The other 8% is natural gas kind of thing. So yeah, we need to turn the grid into a non-emitting grid by 2035. Utilities like ourselves are going to have to invest in trying to find ways of managing line losses and just the transmission. The transmission of electricity from point A to point B emits GHGs and emits and that needs to be curtailed. So how do you do that? Well, there's technology that hopefully we brought to bear. Today's lines are better than the lines of 10, 15 years ago. So, I think the answer there is going to be technological change. The good news is we have a lot of smart people, both academically, within utilities, within the associations, working on trying to solve this problem. But yeah, it's just going to be it's a challenge for us, and I don't necessarily have the right answer. I don't have an answer for you right now, other than as I explained to my board, the iPhone is 12 years old this year. So imagine what life. Think back to where we were in 2008. I can't even imagine what our lives would be like if we didn't have an iPhone in our pocket, right? So that's a technological change that's made a fundamental difference in our life and our society, some good, some bad. But surely the hope is that technological change will help us get to a non-emitting grid by 2035 in an affordable way.
Now, back in 2019, Hydro Ottawa opened its new office building, centralizing your operations while ensuring a new building with a greener footprint. Can you tell us about this decision to move and how you've incorporated sustainability into your building operations?
I joined Hydro Ottawa August 15th, 2011. And on August 16th, 2011, we had a board meeting where they authorized the company to move forward with what was called ubiquitously the real estate strategy, which was effectively, as a result of amalgamation, we had buildings all over the place. We had inherited Gloucester Hydro, Ottawa Hydro, Nepean Hydro, Canada Hydro. So we had all these buildings all over the place that we'd inherited. Some of them were in pretty good shape. Others were absolute pigs. If you think of the one at Albion Road, would be the prime example. The point was they were in all the wrong places. From an operational perspective, they were just in the wrong place. So we developed a plan and a strategy to sort of recapitalize our buildings, and we knew that, quite frankly, for every dollar I spent at Albion Road, it was a dollar I lost, because there was the value was not in the building, the value was in the land. I use the term value loosely. But the point was, we made that decision. Board supported it. Ontario Energy Board, as part of our applications, endorsed the idea that we needed new facilities. So we launched the plan I don't know, 2014, a couple stutter steps along the way, trying to find the right lands. Finally landed on the right places for us as a company. And if you look at our headquarters, and right now we opened in 2019, but all the new buildings are built to LEED Gold standards. Both facilities have significant on-site renewable. They have solar facilities on site. They were designed to be. We didn't want them to be ostentatious or flashy. We wanted them to be functional. We wanted them to be low maintenance to the extent that we possibly could. We wanted to do what we could on our GHGs as well. So environmentalism, and that came directly from our employees. As we were doing the builds and designing, we were constantly reaching into our workforce to see what was important to them, what would they want to see. And that was one of the things. They all, obviously everybody wants light. So if you've been to the facilities, they're wide open. Everybody has access to sort of fresh, good quality air. Everyone has access to sort of, daylight for the most part. So they actually turned out fantastic. It's exactly what we wanted. So we installed a whole bunch of different environmental things. So we got solar charging stations at our headquarters. We've got electrical charging stations at the headquarters. We've got water reduction facilities in place. So I think we're using 55 or 60% less water than we otherwise used to. We use the gray water, return that, gets used back into the gardens and stuff like that. I think we're diverting 95% of our non-hazardous waste. We have our kitchen supplier has access to a dehydrator, which allows them to dehydrate the food waste to reduce, to use it as compost. From the design perspective, health and wellness was factored into it from day one. So we've got, I won't say world-class gym facility, but it's pretty damn good. Got lots of ergonomically designed workspaces. The meeting rooms are flexible. We've got collaboration spaces everywhere. So the whole point was, I think Steve Jobs used to refer to them as collision points, where an employee would bump into another employee and an idea would germinate. That's kind of the way we built the place. So, every corner has not every corner, but just throughout the building, there's collaboration spaces, both inside and outside. We've got a walking path on our property. So all of those have been done because of the right things to do. They were the right things to do. Now, post-pandemic or in the middle of a pandemic, I would tell you that all these open spaces are not our friends. There are points where you'd like to put up some walls again and close some doors, but it is what it is. We'll get past this and get back to normal, and we'll be happy with what we got. But the facilities are great. We love them. I think everyone's I honestly haven't heard anybody complain about the facilities, which, if you work in the utility, is shocking.
It seems every couple months, we're hearing about an innovative new example of electrification of other economic sectors. Here in Ottawa, we're seeing multiple modes of public transportation transitioning to electric. For example, e-scooters, which I have to say I use a lot and are super fun, to everything else, such as chainsaws and lawnmowers seem to be up for grabs when it comes to electrification. What's the coolest example of electrification that you've come across, Bryce?
I got like 15 answers to this one. So I love those electric scooters. I used them for the first time when I was in San Diego, whipping along the waterfront in San Diego on an electric scooter was, one of the coolest things in the world. Of course, I didn't look so graceful when I fell, but so be it. So those are really cool. I've seen electric surfboards, which I think are really cool too. I'm terrified to even conceive of how to get on one, but it's this kind of a wakeboard that you get elevated up in the air, so you're surfing on top of the water, and it's purely electric powered. But that looks pretty cool. My neighbor here has one, and I'm jealous when I see him out there on it. But honestly, the coolest one, quite frankly, are still the cars. Like you see some of these, some people may not remember, but there used to be a car that came out of the U.S. military. It was called a Hummer. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was governor of California, had a Hummer, and he made his electric at great personal expense to him, I'm sure. But these are cars that, massive big V12 engines. When you would turn on the gas and you turn the car on, you could literally see the ozone layer deplete behind you. That's how much these things were. And they were just pigs on gas. They drove fast. I don't even know what they would get to a gallon. Probably like 3 kilometers to a gallon of gas back in the day. But they were just enormous. And so, much like everything else, they went the way of the dodo bird. They got sold off and then, shut down. Well, then lo and behold, they're coming back. So 2022, is the first year of the electric Hummer. And it is 1,000 horsepower. It weighs 10,000 pounds or close to 10,000 pounds. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. And again, it weighs 10,000 pounds. It's amazing what they're capable of doing, and it's going to have a range of 580 kilometers or whatever it will be. But just the sheer improvements in these electric vehicles Dan got 2 of them, but we're a long way from when these first electric cars came out. Hydro Ottawa had one of the very first electric cars, and I would tell you, because I used to park next to it in the garage. There would be weeks when we'd go by where I wouldn't see that car because it was in the garage being fixed or something was wrong. It was a very, I drove it one day, and my teenage daughter, who was probably all of 13 at the time, was in the back seat and thinking she's really cramped in the back seat because the whole damn thing is a big battery. So you just think about where that car was relative to the cars that we're seeing out there today. And I'm not even talking about the Teslas. I'm talking about, the Hyundais and sort of the traditional car makers and the efforts that they're making in this space. It's truly exceptional what they're doing, and full credit to them. I saw Dan referenced the Audi electric, the e-tron. It's the coolest car in the world, and all these cars are just incredible. So my answer is, notwithstanding the scooters, at least I don't fall out of my car. So,
with Hydro Ottawa customers making it very clear that climate change is important to them, and they want you to continue being part of the solution and pushing the organization to do more. How are you planning to assist customers reducing their carbon footprint?
It's a great question. And, it's part of the moonshot, right? I don't actually know what they need until we start dialing this in and getting work on it. But what I know is that they want to interact with us differently. They want information. They want access to information in a way that no one else has ever asked for us, right? They are interacting. It used to be that, the average Canadian thought of their electrical company 9 minutes a year when they were paying their bills. That's not the case anymore. When they're making decisions with respect to appliances, they're thinking about their consumption. When they're making decisions with respect to their cars, they're calling us. One of our affiliates in Bari, one of the services we offer is electric vehicle readiness assessments for small commercial and condo buildings. Because you think, for Dan to live in his house and install car chargers, no problem. But if you're living in a condo corporation with 400 units, how do you build out the electric car charging asset? Does it build to the house, to the person that owns the electric car, or are they sort of shared resources? So, these are some of the challenges that we're dealing with, and our customers are dealing with firsthand. So our job is to help. Our job is to try to help navigate those issues and concerns and make them, provide them with the information. And sometimes they'll make the right decision. Sometimes they'll make the wrong decision, but at least they're making an informed decision, if nothing else. So that's an example. The electric bus initiative here in Ottawa, another one that we're quite proud of. We're going to partner with the city of Ottawa to sort of deploy and roll out 400 plus electric buses. So if you've ever seen these buses, I mean, they are sleek, they are noiseless, they are, quite frankly, enjoyable to ride. You don't have that diesel smell that's everywhere. You're not on Slater Street looking down a canyon of diesel spewing buses anymore. So those are all the things that we're going to do to help our community and our customers. And quite frankly, there are probably 15,000 other things that we're going to be doing to help them as we get into this fight, as we get into this, start climbing this challenge or responding to this challenge. We're going to find other things that they're going to want. And what I do know is that we've got a good brand. We've got social license within our community. If they're going to turn to anybody, they're going to turn to us to help for solutions. And it's our job to be there to help them.
So, Bryce, as a community asset, will Hydro Ottawa pursue net zero outside the confines of its own operations? And if so, what's your plan in terms of playing such an instrumental role in the broader progress of Ottawa towards becoming net zero and or any other sorts of electrification programs?
Yeah. I mean, let's be clear. That's one of the reasons we're doing the net zero commitment. We made the net zero commitment, and the board was very clear. We're not just doing this so that we can feather our own cap. We're not doing this so that we can put up a banner that says mission accomplished in 2030. We're going to do this because we want to support our community and our city in moving to being net zero, whether that by 2040 or 2050. We want to get there. So Hydro Ottawa actually becomes a catalyst to helping them achieve these things, and that means partnering with the city on their energy evolution file, working with the city on the electric bus stuff that I talked about. Helping them look at their municipal buildings and say, okay, like this Nepean Sportsplex, is it time for this thing to go through a deep retrofit so that we can sort of make it more energy efficient? I mean, the city's got massive real estate holdings in a lot of buildings that predate me and predate you and predate us, which are in dire need of sort of retrofitting. And it's the low-hanging fruit's done. We've swapped out the light bulbs already. Like, for us to make a difference and to sort of hit those targets that the city has set for itself, we got to start doing some real meaningful stuff. Like, we got to start doing some deep retrofits to buildings. We got to start, as we're doing with the city on the bus side, you got to start doing some big, bold things, and we're there to help them do that. So the short answer to your question, Rebecca, is yeah, we're there. We're there. We'll be there. We'll be partnering with them. We'll use our technology. We'll use our budget if necessary.
Okay, mon ami. How about we close off with some rapid-fire questions?
Sure.
Since you've already been a guest on our program, we've come up with some special new ones for you, Bryce. Are you ready?
I'm game.
What are you reading right now, Bryce?
It's a book by a congressman, a guy named Jamie Raskin. It's called Unthinkable. It's about January 6th, last year, I guess. So Jamie Raskin is a congressman from Maryland whose son tragically committed suicide like days before January 6th. And then Jamie Raskin went on to serve as the head of the impeachment proceedings against former President Trump as a result of January 6th. So it's a book about that. So that's really depressing, but it's a fantastic book and terrifying at the same time. But I just finished reading the book by Mark Carney, Values, which I recommend to anybody and everybody. I thought it was really, really well done. So if you haven't read that, you should read that too. A little more cheery.
Now, what would you name your boat if you had one? So
the short answer is I think all boats should be called the Enterprise. But I actually saw a boat on the Rito. It was down parked in front of the convention center this year. It was this massive boat, and the boat's name was Size Matters, which I thought was pretty funny. I'll stick with Enterprise.
Wondering if you could share with us who is someone that you truly admire?
Well, I mean, look, how can you not admire somebody like Nelson Mandela or, I think Winston Churchill's probably the greatest leader the world has ever seen. So I'll go with Winston Churchill and Nelson Mandela and leave it there.
Now, what is the closest thing to real magic that you've witnessed?
I haven't a clue. Pass.
What has been the biggest challenge to you personally since the pandemic?
Before the pandemic hit, I probably logged, 75,000 miles a year in the plane, flying from one place to another. A lot of it for meetings and stuff. But the lack of travel, the lack of contact, from a professional perspective, I would, whether it was going to CS Week or Distribute Tech or any of these other meetings, you go to them and you'd come back kind of rejuvenated on the one hand, but also kind of inspired by the things that we were doing relative to our peers. And then you'd always pick up one or two little things that you thought, that's really cool. I wish we could do something like that. And quite frankly, it's been 2 years since I've been able to do that. And Zoom calls are great, but, they just don't capture the same, you don't get the same benefit, right? So I would say that, and obviously, just day-to-day social interaction. It'd be nice to actually be able to have people over without worrying about whether they've been vaccinated and boosted and, all that good nonsense. But I'm hopeful we'll get there.
We've all been watching a lot more Netflix and TV lately. What's your favorite movie or show?
Well, the greatest movie of all time is The Godfather. So that's the one that no matter what time of day or night it's on, if I flip by and see it's on, I will watch whatever's left of it. So that's just it. And then my favorite TV show sounds stereotypical. I love The Sopranos, and I rewatched Sopranos over the holidays because David Chase came out with that new movie, the Saints of Newark, which I wanted to refresh my memory on all things Tony Soprano before I watched that.
And lastly, Bryce, what's really exciting you about the electricity sector right now?
The answer is what's not exciting, right? Like, the biggest challenge facing our country, the people, this generation is climate change and how we respond to climate change. And where else do you want to be in the middle of a fight than right in the middle of it, right? So climate change is the challenge. Electricity is the answer. And the electrical sector is going to be front and center in that fight. So I can't think of a better place to be. I mean, I have, like lots of people, had other opportunities presented to me over the last few years, but there's no place I'd rather be than at the head of Hydro Ottawa as we go into this climate change fight. I just think that the opportunities are fantastic. I think the impact is fantastic if we can get it right. And I'm just, bullish on the sector. I think the answers, our sector is the answer, whether it be electric transportation or heating and cooling. It's going to be electricity. That's the answer. And it's just a question of trying to find how do you fit it all together in an affordable way that people can understand.
Well, Bryce, that's it. We've reached the end of another episode of the Think Energy podcast. Thanks again, boss, for joining us today. We hope you had a good time.
Had a great time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Think Energy podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening. And to find out more about today's guest or previous episodes, visit thinkenergypodcast.com. I hope you'll join us again next time as we spark even more conversations about the energy of tomorrow.